Hello, guys. This is 20 Minutes with 2020 Mendocino, our new podcast series where we will answer questions directly from the public. We will be discussing growing, breeding, and general cannabis industry questions. Though only available in audio form now, expect video segments in the near future and interviews from other industry leaders. My name is Carlos, and I'm the creative director here over at 2020, and I will be moderating and asking questions along with my co host, Adam, founder of 2020. Please check out 2020mendocino.com/podcast if you'd like to submit questions. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel and expect more digital content from us in the near future. Now let's get right into it. In this episode, we'll be discussing STS. We've had a number of questions that have come to us over the last few months since we've released our spray, and we've compiled them together into one segment that we'll cover today. So, Adam, one of the main questions that we always receive is, why do you prefer to use STS over colloidal silver? What are the pros and cons of each, and what made you decide to start selling it?
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, so we've been excited to get the STS podcast going because we do get a ton of questions since we started selling it, especially. So this it's been in the making for a bit, but I'm glad to be here. So I'll start. This is kind of a three-part question, but looks like the first part of it is why do you prefer STS over colloidal silver? So both products work. We have proven that both products are effective. The main reason we've focused on STS is that it's more reliable, so it tends to work a greater percentage with greater percentage reliability than colloidal silver, and it's significantly cheaper. So with production seed runs, it can actually get pretty expensive spraying silver on your plants. So that's really the main two things, and also you there's a less labor in that you have longer spray intervals, this time in between spraying. So basically you save in labor as well. So it's overall just money savings, time savings, and more reliable. So I think I covered the pros and cons of each. But I'd say, I mean, the biggest, the easiest, the thing that makes colloidal silver better, if anything, is that it's really widely available and you can make it at home really easily. So it's certainly it's a product that works, and if it's an option for you, if it's the only option for you, go with it. It definitely works. And then why do we decide to start selling STS? Well, we posted a video tutorial on how to mix STS at one point based on um, uh, the kind of common formula that's going around on the web. And we got a ton of people basically saying, would you just sell it to us? I don't really want to play chemist at home, and I know it's not that difficult, but I'd rather just buy it from you. So we kind of just toyed around with putting it online for sale, and honestly, it was a little bit of it was just to uh, support the community, in that we had noticed that STS was available for an insane markup. It's really not that expensive to mix, and a lot of it's just the labor, the bottling, the packaging, and the shipping. In the end, the actual product doesn't really cost that much to make, but people were marking it up a lot. So I think it was part of us was just like, hey, let's do this for the community. So we don't mix it in bulk. We don't sell it in bulk. We just do small batches. We've had a lot of commercial seed manufacturers try to buy it from us in bulk quantity, and we don't do that. So we only sell it in 8-ounce mixed bottles, and or 8-ounce bottles that we actually sell a 2-part mix for. So yeah, let's move on to the next question, and I think we'll kind of circle back to that question throughout the 20 minutes.
So, one of the main questions that we receive on our product is, what is the ideal room temperature or humidity level to store it at?
Okay, so um, yeah, we have on the package label that it should be stored out of the light is the number one thing, and then in a cool environment. However, we have started making a part A and part B mixture, and those have an indefinite shelf life. And for the most part, I mean, you just don't want to leave it on the hood of your, or on the dashboard of your car in the blazing sun. But for the most part, it's a shelf stable material, shelf stable until they've actually been mixed. And after that, uh, you end up silver nitrate is an oxidizer, and the breakdown will occur pretty quickly after it mixes with the sodium thiosulfate. So basically, once you mix it, store it in the refrigerator. And I think um, if the question, I'm not sure, I guess I was a little confused on the question, is that if they were talking about the temperature, humidity of the grow environment, because we have had some questions about that as well. And if we want to move on to that, I can kind of, in the basic stance, we like to run a little drier than normal and a little hotter than normal. And that's because reverse plants tend to mold easier than than regular females and males, of course. So you definitely want to kind of be in full mold prevention mode, and having a little higher temperature and really low humidity helps for that. And it helps release the pollen as well, which I think we're going to get into that here very shortly in the next few questions.
Well, one thing that definitely confuses everybody when they first use this product is how do they know it's working?
Yeah, so that's funny. And I get that question all the time. So we end up getting photographs. People send us photos and they're like, I don't think it's working. I see some female signs coming out. And I always tell them the same answer, like it 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 it's gonna work. You just got to be patient, and it does the same thing to us every time. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's just like it's one of those things that you just don't think it's working until it starts working. And that's as far as the actual reversal process goes. Now, the production of pollen can vary a little bit on that, and we'll definitely talk about that soon. But I think the main point is that they really kind of start to look like females before you start to see the reverse male signs come out. So you want to be patient with it. And normally at about the earliest you might see is 15 days, I think. I mean, maybe some strains earlier, but up to even 20, 22 days before you're like, okay, yep, it's working. So just got to be patient with it. But we mix the formula pretty strong, and it tends to work. Uh, I think with our new formula we're mixing, I don't think we've ever had it actually fail on us as far as producing the male pollen sacs.
When do you start spraying?
So we have a really good write up on our website that goes through those the kind of the intervals. But real quickly, I can say that we spray basically as soon as we switch the reversal plants into flower. It can either be that day or within a couple of days at the very latest. And we do usually about a 3-day spray interval, and then up through usually about 5 times, so up through around day 15 or so. But it varies strain to strain. We tend to do a lot of tests before we actually do a production run. So we usually know the strain and the process before we actually start it, which I know not everybody can do that. So then you probably just want to follow the directions on our website, and then that tends to be a basic good overall instructions for the process.
A lot of people like to ask, can you reverse a single branch to pollinate a plant?
Yes. So that is a great question, and I do answer that question a lot. So I'm glad it's on here. The answer is yes, you can, but the caveat is you probably won't be able to pollinate that plant with that branch. And the reason is that it takes a good amount of time for the pollen to actually start dropping when you reverse a female. So it's much slower than just putting a male into flower, where you can actually have pollen dropping within within 8 days or 14 days. Where the reversals, as I said earlier, you're lucky to even start to very see the beginning of the male parts coming out, and that's at day 14 or 15, and maybe not even till day 22. So if you're switching a plant over and spraying one branch, yes, you will reverse that branch, but by the time you have pollen dropping from that branch, your flowers are in upwards of day 30, and they may be already past the point of being viable for pollination.
Some people seem to be able to reverse the plants rather easily, and as you stated before, our spray formula doesn't really have any issues reversing any plant. But one thing that people seem to notice, and one question we always get is, my reverse plants have pollen sacs, but they don't seem to be dropping pollen. What do you say to that, Adam?
So yeah, that's one of the mysteries so far, even for us, is that certain plants are just really stubborn, and we're really working hard at determining the exact recipe or guiding principles that determine what is keeping the pollen from actually forming, and even when you have the what appears to be a perfect reversed plant. It's a small percentage of the time, but it's not I mean, it's fairly common if you're doing it often. So I would guess it happens to us upwards of 10% of the strains that we try to reverse just don't work. And one thing we've noticed is that heat seems to help, and we have had issues recently where the first week or so of the pollen sacs opening, there was no pollen in them, and then all of a sudden the later ones that started to open had lots of pollen in them. And we've theorized that it's possible that the STS mixture uh, was actually impeding the production of pollen. But it seemed like in that situation, the heat is possibly what fixed the problem. We raised the temperature of the room quite a bit, and all of a sudden, that same plant that wasn't putting out any pollen started dumping pollen. So um, it's still a work in progress for us as well. So we're really trying to figure out those stubborn strains, and we have had a few. And if we list a coming soon, and all of a sudden people are like, "What happened to your the reverse glue sniffers?" Well, the real fact is that the reversal failed for us. So we're working on it. I think we're going to figure it out. But it is a work in progress for us, and hopefully we can get that last 5 or 10% of the strains that don't want to produce pollen.
Okay, so assuming you do have pollen, can you please explain the pollination process? Do you collect pollen or use pollen directly from the plant?
So we do both, Carlos. We It really depends on our timing, what we're doing with what our plans are with the pollen, if it's production or not. So normally we prepare with plenty of reversals to make sure that if we have a low pollen producing reversal, we still have enough to get all the seeds we need, and that's especially with production. So if you're just doing like small amounts for personal use, you really don't need to reverse very much. I mean, you can get a good amount even from a small production. I mean, a small pollen production, you can still get plenty of personal use seeds. Um, but we almost always collect the pollen too and store it, and that way we just have some for experiments or for R&D or for making seeds that are part of our R&D program and not necessarily the production program. But I don't particularly prefer to reverse a plant, collect the pollen for production, because that's a lot of labor to hand pollinate for tens of thousands of seeds. So it can be done, but you need a good amount of pollen, and it's actually a very efficient way to do it as far as the actual amount of pollen, because you can essentially cover the seeds directly, or the plants directly, manually, instead of just kind of dusting the air with it. But time wise, it's much more efficient just to do an air pollination. So we basically just have enough plants in the room, and we finagle them, we shake them, we put fans in front of them. We have a little electric blower that we kind of blast the pollen out with. So there's kind of lots of little techniques, and we basically use them all during that time, just to get as many seeds as possible. And we don't like to have a long drawn out pollination window. We like to do it in a fairly short amount of time. It's stressful on the plants uh, to produce seeds, and so we don't like to really like expose them to that for extended amounts of time. Usually maximum of 7 to 10 days. So we don't really like to push it much beyond that, because what'll happen is if you actually make too many seeds, you can weaken the plant enough to where the the seeds that it sacrifices a lot of the seeds. You end up with more premature ones, um, and it's just riskier in general. So the earlier it gets pollinated, uh, and the less it gets pollinated, actually, the better. Usually, the better the seeds come out.
Right on. So I just want to reiterate to everybody that the instructions on how to use our STS and all information on it is available on our website at www.2020mendocino.com/STS. And it is also available for purchase if you go to www.2020mendocino.com/merchandise. The STS kit is available on there as well as the refill kits. Now I guess we can get into the cool stuff. Adam, can you talk about the feminized seed releases that 2020 has upcoming?
Yeah, I can. So we have quite a big list, actually. I don't know how far in the future you want me to go, but these are actually ones that aren't just our possibly on the docket. These are actually seeds that we have made or are uh, in process of testing. So we've got one that I'm really proud of. That's Maid of Honor. That's us. That's our bad girl crossed with sour snow. Uh, Ultra frosty. We're doing tests on it now, running it, and I mean it's everything we could have dreamed that it would be. It's pretty much. It's really two really solid, well worked strains, and the phenos that we have running right now are damn near identical. Um, they smell the same. They're really tall, robust, strong. They smell uh like uh like a Danish sweet roll with that really funky master kush from the bad girl, that smell that bad girl has, and of course the kind of insane exotic terpenes from the sour snow. So that's one. Would you like me to go through them all, Carlos, or do we have time for that?
Well, I think I'd like you to talk a little bit about the spice and maybe some of the cool T-dub crosses we got going on.
Okay, so yeah, I'll get through those. So we did a train wreck T dub reversal um, project with a couple strains. I know I talk about train wreck a lot. It's a strain that I basically have been. It's been a part of my world since my humble beginnings, I guess you could say. And of course, Humboldt County, Mendocino County. I mean, it's been a huge part of the fabric of this maybe I should say the foundation of a lot of the community here. Kind of started in the 90s. All are very well aware, and grew tons of train wreck, um, and I think it's an underrated strain. I think it had a huge showing in the 90s, and it kind of got overgrown, and but there's a lot of followers out there. We raised a lot of good energy from people when we kind of said we were going to release it. A lot of people kind of came out of the woodwork and were super happy, and our train wreck is everything to be expected from what the same stuff we had in the 90s. And it's original seed stock that we've been working for years, and if anything, we've even improved it for outdoor growing and the trichome production and the smell and everything. So we've got a couple fun things with that though. We crossed that with our glue sniffer. We're running that now, and it's fabulous. It's just exactly what you would expect. Trainwreck is a genetics hog in the sense that it pretty much steals the show with the gene pool. And typically, if you cross anything with Trainwreck, it tends to dominate, and things kind of turn out kind of more towards those exotic terpenes. So that's a fun one. And then we've got one of our really like exciting. I'm going to go through two more, but one of our really exciting uh, strains that we've already ran tests on actually back in December, and is and we're just completely enthralled. We're super excited about it. We call it the Spice, and it is biscotti crossed with the Whip. And the Whip is one of our flagship strains. I just did a post. We just posted on Instagram about it, and kind of explain the story. A lot of people ask about it. It's one of our breeding stock strains. I mean, it's pedigree breeding at its finest. It's a well worked strain that just always produces really good offspring. Super potent. It's a squatty, powerful indica with roots from Island Mountain in Humboldt County. It's been around forever. And it came from a strawberry Afghan, or strawberry Kush is what we called it. So yeah, we crossed that with the biscotti, and boy, it's just everything we could have expected and more. So it smells almost exactly like crushed up cloves and nutmeg and anise, so like black licorice. And I mean, it smells exactly like that, and it burns your nose. It's super potent, super flavorful. It's got crazy thick frost trichome rails on it, so it's just been really exciting to see that. And the stability of that strain is uncanny. I mean, we grew 40 females, and they were literally identical. Carlos, you were actually part of the pheno hunt with me when we were going through those, and we literally just gave up. We couldn't even choose a winner. I mean, they were all pretty much identical. So that's really neat. That's going to be coming out here in the next few months. And then the last one I'm going to talk about is the MMXX. So that's that's our name ship strain, flagship strain. It's our two flagship strains crossed together. Our namesake is what I meant to say. Our namesake strain, and that is the Sour Snow crossed with the Whip. And so these are two really well worked lines, two of our main breeders. And we've never really we have crossed them together, but this was like the real project where we actually pheno hunted out the Whip again after doing that many times. And a winner of a winner of a winner, I guess you could say, and so on and so forth. And we ended up crossing that back with our breeder's cut of the Sour Snow, and we're making feminized seeds of that now. So it is definitely going to be something really exciting. So going through testing now, and we'll be getting it out to the public hopefully later this summer.